Audie Murphy revealed the 6 Golden Age stars he hated most. He was America's most decorated combat soldier of World War II, a warrior who single-handedly held off 6 German tanks and 250 infantry, killing or wounding 50 enemy soldiers and earning every medal for valor his country could bestow, including the Medal of Honor. When Audie Murphy came to Hollywood, he brought with him not just battlefield heroism, but an unflinching moral code forged in the crucible of combat. Audie wasn't just another actor playing a hero. Revealed a former Universal Pictures executive who worked closely with Murphy during the 1950s. He had witnessed real courage and genuine cowardice on the battlefield. He'd seen men sacrifice everything for their brothers and others who broke under pressure. That experience gave him a black and white view of character that Hollywood's gray areas couldn't blur. Unlike most stars who carefully avoided public criticism of colleagues, Murphy maintained private but unyielding judgments about fellow actors whose behavior or values violated his combat-forged principles. For a man who had faced death countless times in Europe, Hollywood pretense and posturing held no intimidation factor. He didn't play politics or worry about career advancement, explained a co-star who became one of Murphy's few genuine Hollywood friends. While other actors were networking at parties, Audie was home with his family or with fellow veterans. He viewed many of Hollywood's biggest names with a contempt he rarely bothered to hide in private conversations. Tonight, we reveal the 6 Golden Age stars who reportedly earned Audie Murphy's deepest disdain. Hollywood icons whose behavior or attitude so thoroughly violated the combat veterans' moral code that he refused to work with them, associate with them, or even pretend respect for their accomplishments. But first, we need to understand why Murphy, a reluctant actor who struggled with his own demons, developed such uncompromising judgments of his Hollywood contemporaries, and why his battlefield-forged perspective makes his assessments uniquely meaningful even decades later. Little about Texas, but that's something no Texan can talk about just a little. So instead, I'd like to talk about some of the men who have made Texas what? The war hero behind the Hollywood facade. Born to impoverished Texas sharecroppers during the Depression, Audie Murphy's early life was defined by hardship. His father abandoned the family and his mother died when he was a teenager, leaving young Audie to care for his younger siblings before he volunteered for military service after Pearl Harbor. Initially rejected by the Marines and paratroopers as too small and underweight, Murphy finally found a home in the infantry, where his unassuming appearance concealed extraordinary courage and lethal effectiveness. Murphy wasn't some bigger-than-life physical specimen, noted a fellow veteran who served with him in Europe. He stood 5 feet 5 in and weighed about 130 pounds soaking wet. What set him apart was a quiet intensity and seemingly supernatural calm under fire. When other men froze, Audie acted without hesitation, without grandstanding, without regard for his own safety. This authenticity, doing rather than talking, risking rather than posturing, became the foundation of Murphy's moral code. One he carried to Hollywood after the war when his Medal of Honor made him a national hero. Universal Studios, seeing the potential in his remarkable story and boyish good looks, offered him a contract despite his lack of acting experience or interest. Audie never particularly wanted to be an actor, explained a longtime friend. He saw films as a way to provide for his family, and occasionally to ensure that America didn't forget the realities of war. He viewed Hollywood with a perpetual outsider skepticism, a fundamentally artificial world populated largely by people playing pretend versions of experiences he had lived for real. This unique perspective, a combat veteran's unflinching assessment of an industry built on illusion, shaped Murphy's uncompromising judgments of his fellow performers. Unlike critics or journalists with careers dependent on industry relationships, Murphy had no professional reason to temper his opinions or pretend respect for stars whose character or conduct violated his combat-forged standards. Audie had seen men die for values like courage, loyalty, and sacrifice, said a director who worked with Murphy on multiple films. When he encountered Hollywood figures who casually disrespected those values, Whether through draft dodging, German sympathies, or simple moral cowardice, his contempt wasn't just professional disapproval. It was the genuine disgust of a man who had held dying friends in his arms for the principles others treated as convenient publicity angles. Now, let's explore the sixth golden age. Stars who reportedly earned Audie Murphy's deepest contempt, Hollywood icons whose behavior or attitude so thoroughly violated the combat veterans, moral code that he refused to work with them, associate with them, or in some cases, even remain in the same room. Imagine being at home now, peaceful and quiet. Nothing. One Errol Flynn, the swashbuckler with dark shadows. Errol Flynn embodies swashbuckling heroism on screen, playing characters who fought for justice and defended the innocent in films like Captain Blood and The Adventures of Robin Hood. According to multiple sources close to Murphy, this carefully crafted heroic image stood in stark contrast to Flynn's actual character, a contradiction the combat veteran found particularly offensive. Rumors of German sympathies, statutory rape charges, and an arrogant disregard for veterans confirmed the former. Universal executive who witnessed Murphy's reaction when Flynn's name came up during a potential project discussion. Audie refused to work with Flynn and once allegedly called him everything I fought against overseas. Murphy's objections to Flynn reportedly centered around several aspects of the actor's life and character. Flynn's well-accumulated sympathies for Germany in the years before America entered World War II particularly disturbed the combat veteran who had witnessed firsthand the horrors of the regime Flynn had apparently admired. According to those who knew Murphy well, he viewed such sympathies not as forgivable political naivety, but as fundamental moral corruption. Flynn thought war was costume drama. Audie knew better, recalled a fellow actor who worked with both men at different times. For Murphy, Flynn's romanticized view of fascism wasn't just ignorant. It was a direct insult to the men who died fighting Hitler's regime. Audie couldn't separate the charming screen persona from the man who had expressed admiration for what Murphy had risked his life to destroy. Beyond political views, Flynn's personal behavior reportedly contributed to Murphy's contempt. The swashbuckling star's 1942 trial for statutory rape, though he was acquitted, and his general reputation for predatory behavior toward young women violated Murphy's old-fashioned views on proper conduct and respect. As a man who had witnessed extraordinary female courage among resistance fighters in Europe, Murphy allegedly found Flynn's treatment of women particularly disturbing. Audie came from a generation and background where protecting the vulnerable was a fundamental measure of manhood, explained a longtime friend. Flynn's behavior with young women and girls represented exactly the kind of predatory exploitation Murphy had fought against. Power used to take advantage of the weak rather than to protect them. Perhaps most unforgivable to Murphy was Flynn's avoidance of military service during World War II, remaining in Hollywood making adventure films while his contemporaries fought and died overseas. Flynn received a 4F classification, unfit for service for various health issues, including a heart condition, malaria, and tuberculosis. While these medical exemptions were technically legitimate, Murphy reportedly viewed them skeptically, given Flynn's highly physical performances in action films made during the same period. The contrast was just too stark for Audie, noted a director who knew both men. Here was Flynn playing heroic warriors on screen, while avoiding actual combat through medical exemptions that seemed conveniently inconsistent with his vigorous on-screen athletics. For someone who had experienced real combat, this kind of play acting at heroism while avoiding its reality was worse than cowardice. It was exploitation of the genuine sacrifice others were making. This combination of factors, political sympathies antithetical to American values, problematic personal behavior, and perceived avoidance of military obligation, reportedly placed Flynn at the top of Murphy's private list of Hollywood figures he genuinely despised. According to those close to him, Murphy maintained this assessment throughout his life, refusing to soften his judgment. Even as others in Hollywood forgave or overlooked Flynn's controversial aspects in appreciation of his talent. The next name on Murphy's list represents a different kind of contempt directed at one of Hollywood's most celebrated method actors, whose anti-American attitudes reportedly earned the war hero's lasting disdain. It was a very tough decision to make because I can't think of a director that's better than Gayan. To me, he is the best director. 2. Marlon Brando, the method actor's anti-American methods. Marlon Brando revolutionized acting with his raw, naturalistic performances in films like A Streetcar Named Desire and On the Waterfront. His method approach and emotional intensity earned him critical acclaim and industry respect that continue to this day. Yet, according to those close to Audie Murphy, the combat veteran maintained a deep, unshakable contempt for Brando. Not for his talent, which Murphy reportedly acknowledged, but for high.